and welcome to Untamed Unfiltered. I'm Amanda Nicholson.
And I am Aaron Provencio, and today we are joined by Dr. Karra Pierce, the Center's Veterinary Fellow, and maybe another special guest down the road. We'll find out a little bit later.
Can't wait.
How's it going today, Karra?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Karra, as we take a deeper dive into our Case for Indoor Cats episode. This is kind of a hefty topic to get into, and I know one that can get really emotional and one with strong feelings on either side as well. So lots to talk about, lots to explore, and we knew that we definitely wanted to talk to you because you have this dual perspective, or really there's a word for like a three-way perspective there of you're a veterinarian, you've had experience in the past with small animals, so certainly treating cats, but you're wildlife veterinarian now, so seeing lots of cat attack victims, but you're also a cat owner as well.
Those are all true things about me. You know me so well. Those are all things that I care a lot about and are a pretty big part of my core identity, I think. Of all those things, I think Cat Mom is the one I'm most proud of, which you will see why hopefully later if you get to meet her. And I guess my first thing about that is, I mean, as a cat owner, my cat is an indoor cat. She does not go outside unless she's on a leash, which I'm pretty particular about. It's a very nice pink leash. And she only goes outside supervised on a leash, and that's for her safety. I don't want her out there in the world where she could get hit by a car, get eaten by an owl, poisoned by something. It's so dangerous out there, and I know how much I love her. I would not be able to sleep at night knowing she was not safely within the four walls of my home.
And so, as a cat owner yourself, but also as a veterinarian, why do you think that there's this double standard when it comes to cat versus dog owners? Because people don't seem to be comfortable or encouraged to just let their dogs go roaming around the neighborhood, but for some reason that doesn't necessarily exist in the cat community. Do you have any insight as to that?
I think a lot of it has to do with people's perception of like natural cat behaviors, that they want them to be able to roam and hunt and things like that. And that those are, natural behaviors that they should get to express that can only be expressed outdoors. And that's just not true. They can express all those behaviors indoors in a much safer way for themselves and for wildlife, obviously. And I think, as things change and more knowledge comes out and kind of our generation shifts, I think that's something we'll see hopefully less and less of. I mean, I remember talking to my mom, and she had a dog named Moochie when she was like 10 that just free roamed the neighborhood. And she told me that just like, he'd come home, he wouldn't come home. Like we'd see him from time to time. And I was like, what? Like, what kind of pet owner were you? And I think I'm hoping at least that, in 20 years look back at cats like that and be like, oh God, we just let them go not knowing where they were going or what they were doing. They could come home pregnant or destroyed, have an abscess, all these things that I certainly do not wish for my cat. So.
And something that came up in the episode and that I feel like comes up all the time when we talk about cat attacked animals on Facebook, and kind of people start this big debate, is a very fundamental definition of cats are domestic animals, right? But many people think of them as wildlife, or just maybe not necessarily as wildlife, but that it's natural, it's very natural for them to be outdoors hunting. Why do you think that is? I mean, I know cats are a lot of them are just kind of purely independent and probably remind us of little wild jungle cats doing their own thing. But why do you think that's such a misperception?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's really just because of what we've seen and what we've seen in popular culture. I mean, you see like the alley cat in all the movies. You see all those things that's what you're raised as being normal. And if you don't necessarily have a background in wildlife conservation or ecology or things like that, you don't realize that really domestic cats that are outdoor at least are an invasive species in the same way we see feral rabbits take over parks, and those European starlings that come in are invasive, and those house sparrows that come in are invasive, and those animals all do damage to the natural ecosystem, unfortunately. The most extreme person could argue we are also an invasive species, but I will not go down that that route. So I think it's just generally just perception over time and what people have considered normal. And two, I think it's really easy to look at your cat and then, see it pouncing and playing, and then look at a video of a lion and see it pouncing and playing and be like, oh, it's the same. But it's not the same. There's years and years and years of evolution and domestication that separates those animals, and they're domestic animals.
So there's this interesting point that came up during Caroline's part of this episode that some people, when they call to report a cat attack, will say something or, mention that they don't think that the squirrels or the bunnies or the salamanders or the birds that are getting attacked don't feel pain. But we know that's not right, and you especially know that that's not correct, right?
Oh yeah, that's completely true. I mean, these animals feel pain the exact same way we do. They have the same receptors, the same neurologic systems that cause pain and interpret pain, and that's been well studied. And we know just by giving these animals pain medication, their behavior changes when they're experiencing painful stimulus. So we know they experience pain, certainly. So you know what it feels like when your cat claws you or bites you or takes a swat at you. It doesn't feel great. And imagine now you're a tiny little bird that's this big, and that's a gash through your whole abdomen, which is going to be excruciatingly painful. And not only the pain is a problem, but also cats have a huge propensity to cause really significant infection. So if you have a free roaming outdoor cat, maybe you've seen your cat come home with a cat bite abscess from a fight with another cat. And that's because cats have just really nasty bacteria in their teeth that they basically seed down into wounds, and that just festers and festers and festers and can lead to that animal becoming septic, having a huge infection, and dying, basically.
And I think that's one reason why we as wildlife professionals get upset with the cat attack victims, right, with this issue, because we do see a lot of patients come in, and when they come in, a lot of times it is pretty bad. So like the injuries are not nice looking. So it was so interesting to hear Caroline say that in the episode, that a lot of people are unsure if these animals feel pain. I wouldn't have considered that, although I guess in thinking about that animal's behavior, sometimes it can be hard to read because these wild animals don't act like our dogs or cats or whatever, like they're not our pets. So
yeah.
Natural behavior for a rabbit who is terrified and in pain is just to freeze. And people may interpret that as like, oh, it's nice or fine or a robot. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, completely. And I mean, nature is pretty cruel. And we've all watched those nature documentaries where the weakest of the herd gets picked off, and it's very dramatic and very sad. But that's how animals survive, is they pretend they're okay, they pretend they're strong. And that's what I teach a lot of my wildlife students coming into our hospital. Our vet students, they've worked with dogs, they've worked with cats, they haven't necessarily worked with wildlife a lot. And the first thing I teach them, the most critical part of really being a wildlife vet, is you need to be able to do a distance exam on that animal, see what their natural resting state is like when you, a big scary predator, isn't looking at them, because their instinct is going to be to hide whatever illness or injury they have. And that's when people are finding those animals, right? So if your cat just attacks a little bunny, it's going to act like it's okay or pretend it's okay to the best of its ability. So the next predator doesn't get it, which is probably you picking it up and bringing it into the wildlife hospital. So.
And the other, one other factor that I always love bringing up when talking about outdoor cat stuff is that it's not just the cat attack victims that we see. Like what cats do out there, we don't even fully know, although there have been some interesting studies on that. But the victims that they bring home to their owners and then maybe end up in a wildlife rehabilitation facility are really a small slice of the damage that's going on. And one study that I think is so interesting was came out in 2013, I think, in the UK, and it just showed they were looking at the presence of outdoor cats and how it affected animals, even without direct interaction. But they were seeing that nesting birds were making fewer trips to the nest with food for their young. So just like the very presence of the cat was stressing out the parents, presumably, which made some sense to me. You probably don't want to be drawing a great deal of attention to your young if there's a giant predator right there. So outdoor cats certainly impact wildlife in a lot of different ways.
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, besides from the damage they're doing to the physical wildlife, just their presence is enough to have a mother abandon an entire nest if she is there often, or if that cat is there often. The mom's gonna look at the risk analysis here. Basically, that's what wildlife has to do, is they have to look at, okay, what is the risk of if I go feed my babies? Oh, I might get killed. They might get killed. What is the risk if I don't go back? The babies might die, but I'm still okay to go on and have more babies, it's kind of like a cutthroat approach to it, and not something we really probably identify with as humans necessarily, but that's the stuff wildlife has to deal with every single day, with cats and any really, outdoor hazard that we as humans have imposed on them.
Naturally, this issue, like many conservation issues, is pretty contentious. We know what the data says. Like Amanda was saying, there's a lot of studies that have shown the disproportionate effect that cats on the landscape, outdoor cats, can have on local native wildlife. But it is also an emotionally charged issue, and sometimes those of us that are proponents of keeping cats inside and keeping cats from being outside can use contentious language such as labeling cats as killers, right? And that can often get people upset because they're saying, oh, well, my cat's not a killer, it's my cute little baby who sleeps with me at night. But unfortunately, this idea of killing and attacking is not necessarily that they're going to go kill things because they're killers, but it's a behavioral response, right? That's just instinctual.
Completely, yeah. I mean, that's something that hasn't necessarily been bred out of them over all these years, and that's why your cat will play with a toy on the floor, because it has that instinct to hunt and play and prey on things. That's kind of what I think a lot of us love about them, is that it's really freaking cute when they do it indoors to a toy or a laser or a bubble. My cat loves bubbles, but it's not so cute when they're doing it outside with a rodent or a bird or something like that. And we as humans need to be the ones who help make that distinction by not allowing them opportunity to have access to the outdoor animals, because they don't know. I can't tell my cat, that one's a bird, it's a real bird, don't go after it. But the toy with feathers, yes, absolutely play with that. She's not that smart. As much as I would like to think she's that smart, she's not that smart. So, it's a natural behavior for them that they're going to display indoors or outdoors, and we need to be the ones who are responsible to keep them indoors to protect the wildlife outdoors.
So that was a lovely segue into Charlotte Amelia. She was in this episode, right? And we've been talking about her. I want to know all about her and what she likes doing and how she feels about everything.
All right, well, here she is. This is little Charlotte Amelia. She feels like she doesn't want to look into the camera. But this is my personal cat, my first cat, my one and only true love, if I need to be speaking freely. She is 4 years old. We got her in Canada. I'm from Canada. And she was originally just like on a farm somewhere with a whole litter of other cats. And then I ended up getting her through a vet that I used to work for. And I've had her ever since. She's a bit of a special cat in that she is not quite full size. She's a dwarf of some sort, not intentionally. She's not a designer breed or anything like that. Every other cat in her litter grew to be a completely regular cat. She just did not. I like to think she got a bad spot in the uterus and just like maybe didn't get enough oxygen or something like that. But she's indoor only and has always been indoor only. We'll take her out on leash walks and things like that. When we used to live in Canada, we'd put her on a leash and like let her walk in the snow, which she absolutely hated. But there's on her Instagram little photos of her walking in the snow, which is very cute. And what does she like to do? Oh God. Sit, sleep, play, ask us for food routinely when we're not going to give her food. Those are her main hobbies. Avoiding the dog or antagonizing the dog, if possible, is another thing she really, really enjoys. And she's a very good cat and has a lot of cat accessories, which maybe I can show you later. She has a lot of indoor cat enrichment and a very enriched indoor cat life. So something I strive for.
Yeah, I feel like she's got a lot of stuff, right? We were like, hey, wildlife center staff people, we need preferably video of your cat, maybe some photos of like them being indoor cats. And you were like, got it covered. Here are 50 photos of various Charlotte things.
It's true. She, in her house, she even has her own bedroom where most of her stuff is kept. And it's like her room. And she has domain to it. There's portraits of her on the wall in her room. It's a little bit extra. Not every indoor cat owner needs to be this extra, but you know, if you want to be, you can.
As your one true love, it's obviously very important that you keep her inside. Why is that?
Yeah. So for Charlotte, I elected the day I got her to have her be an indoor only cat. And my boyfriend is also a vet, and we got her together, and he agreed to that as well. And that's just because we, as vets, have seen so many of the hazards to cats outdoors. So as a cat mom, I just don't want to subject her to any of those risks. And I think I would, feel really awful if my cat was an outdoor cat, got hit by a car, broke its femur, and then has to go through all that was a completely preventable injury for that cat if I had just tried to keep her indoors. And certainly, this is not to shame the cat owners whose cats slip out the back door and get hit by cars and things like that. Things like that happen, and those are accidents. But I think the best thing you can do as a cat owner is elect to keep your cat indoors for its safety. And then the other point of that, as you guys know, is I'm a wildlife vet, and every single day I see animals come into our wildlife hospital that were caught by cats with really, really awful injuries. And again, those are really frustrating for me to treat because those are 100% preventable injuries as well, if that cat owner had just elected to leave their cat indoors. I actually have started joking lately. Every time I see a free roaming outdoor cat, I'm gonna go up to them and pet them and then attach a $50 vet bill to their collar and then send it home saying this is how much we had to pay to treat the cottontail that your cat inevitably caught. I wouldn't actually do it, and I haven't done it, but I keep joking about it that I'm gonna, every outdoor cat I see, I'm gonna send home with a wildlife vet bill.
It gets frustrating at the center just to some days. We know there's a seasonality of when we get the most cat attack victims in, and there are days in May and June where it's just yep, another baby bunny, another songbird, another.
Yeah, it's true, and too, especially in those spring, summer seasons when we're seeing the babies, it gets especially frustrating because people will sometimes bring in animals that were, nestlings or fledglings that they for sure saw their cat interact with, but otherwise looks, okay, doesn't have a horrible injury. Sometimes they don't completely maim them. And in those instances, I still have to keep that animal and treat it with antibiotics due to the high risk of sepsis from that 10-second cat interaction when that animal could have been raised by its mother and its parents and probably, done better in the world, learned how to be a better Robin than I can teach it to be.
Hello, Charlotte.
So this is her downstairs center. There's a center upstairs and downstairs, but her downstairs center is here. Let me play with this one. Okay. So here she has, can you see? Okay, let me know if you can't. But here she has a variety of different cardboard houses, all different kinds of scratching things. There's a box there in the back that she likes to hide in. And then this little thing here, can you see it?
Yeah.
It's like this blue electronic toy I got recently, and you hit a button and little things pop out of all the different sides. Is she playing with it? Can you see?
Yes, that's amazing.
So that's her downstairs play area. She also, for summer, I like to have one for each season, as you can probably see. But for summer, she got this one recently, which is like a wave, which I think is pretty fun. Let's see it. So this is her downstairs play area. Let me just turn this off so she'll come up with us. And then we can move to her upstairs area. All right, and then upstairs, here's her upstairs domain. So she has her large cat tree. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's her large one that faces the window. So she looks out the window, and often when we're coming home, she'll be watching us in the window. And then she has a smaller one here, and then little hidey houses, another scratcher, and then this whole toy box full of just toys for cats. I don't know where she is though, because I didn't know she's coming. And the other thing I have for her that is maybe my favorite thing, we have these catnip bubbles, and I think I can open that.
Just Charlotte came now. This is oh my gosh.
We should add this to critter cams.
Thank you for being in this episode.
This is what the people want.
Yeah.
This is what I do most of my days off.
Cool.
Like
Charlotte Amelia, how do you feel about being an inside cat? Yeah?
She's thrilled.
Looks like it. Well, Amanda, do you have any other questions?
I do have one, actually.
Oh, sorry. I can pay attention to you and stop playing with my cat.
Well, you obviously have a lot of fun stuff for Charlotte Amelia. And it actually reminds me of some advice on our website. So I do want to plug our website for a second, which is we have under our wildlife issues, we have a whole page about the case for indoor cats, talking about the issues with wildlife, also some environmental health issues that outdoor cats can cause. And of course, some studies that do cite that, indoor cats do live longer lives as well. But in addition to that, we do have a whole step-by-step guide to making the transition for bringing for outdoor cat just to the indoor-only life. And Cheryl Falkenberry was in this episode, and she was kind enough to help us a couple years ago put together this whole step-by-step guide. It's really in-depth and very robust. And we're really appreciative of that, because I am well aware that just because we say you should bring your cat indoors, like, you can't snap your fingers and just do that overnight. In a lot of cases, it's a process. It is a training process. It's a animal process. But you can do it, but it takes some time, and that's okay. And just know that it takes some time. But Cheryl had some great advice in there of, like, essentially really getting to know your cat, which sounds kind of silly because you're like, oh, of course I know my cat. But in thinking about what sort of environment do they want? And that's something that you clearly have thought through with Charlotte Amelia. Like, some cats really want to be up high all the time and love climbing. And some are like, well, I would prefer to be in a little tunnel, or maybe both. But it's really kind of experimenting, right? And probably getting to know them and what they like. So I'm curious to know, like, how you did that with her.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. And Patrick and I will be at PetSmart, and we'll be like walking through the aisles looking for things to buy the pets, and like, we know we'll look at something and be like, oh no, that she wouldn't like that, and we'll look at a different toy and be like, oh, she would love that. And we both know the kinds of things she likes, just really from spending time with her and seeing what has been successful, what engages her, what does she just, I put on the floor and she ignores and the dog tries to chew up. And I, for me at least, have learned, like that little electronic toy I had before, it's taken a couple similar toys like that to get her one that she actually engages with and isn't afraid of. I had a very similar one that was like a motorized mouse that drove all around the floor, and she was terrified of it. Like, we'd turn it on and she would go hide under the bed. So for me, with Charlotte at least, it's been trial and error and just observing what she reacts to, what she engages with, and just having all sorts of different things. And for her, I've learned she really likes things that are on the floor. She likes things that crinkle. So like this like crinkly ball, things that make crunchy noises, she loves. And things that kind of like use horizontal space versus vertical space is her preference for a play toy. Whereas, sleeping and perching and things like that, she's going to choose like a high location or a windowsill or somewhere in the sun where she can feel safe and kind of survey her domain. And that's, I would agree completely. Just you need to get to know what your cat enjoys and figure out the things that they will engage with so you can enrich their indoor life. And it's not easy, certainly immediately, to transition a cat from an outdoor lifestyle into an indoor lifestyle. I was lucky we got her as a kitten, so I never had to worry about making that transition. And certainly if you get a kitten and want it to be an indoor cat, that's the first step, obviously. But it is a transition period, and you need to be patient with yourself and patient with your cat when making that transition.
Well, I think that is an awesome way to end this episode of Untamed Unfiltered. So, Karra and, of course, Charlotte Amelia, thank you so much for coming to join us today. And for all you viewers, thank you for tuning in for another episode. And this has been Untamed Unfiltered. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Yep.